seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good Monday evening to each and every one of you CFNers. Thanks so much for joining us. And for those who are going to be watching later, we appreciate that too. All the support, any and all support, we truly appreciate. And of course, CFN Live just brings our community together. And what a night that we are being brought together. We are going to be introduced to a very special guest. Of course, we have co-host Yvonne Brown, who's going to be introducing Maria. And she's going to be talking about the event that's going up at Grassy Narrows Lodge. I also have the dubious honor of hanging out with Lawrence and, of course, Jay Barnucz, we've got some good stuff lined up for you, some really entertaining stuff. Jim won't be with us tonight, so he's got some family stuff going on, and we really appreciate the fact that this is probably one of a few times that Jim has not managed to make it with us. But Big Jim, we're thinking of you. As I said, just a family event. I think his daughter's coming down with the kids, so they're just busy doing family stuff. And as we all know, family comes first. How we doing, Jim? Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Tony's in the house. You're here every Monday, Tony. Really appreciate that. Mark, he's off the water. It is ladies' night. It is a ladies' night event. We're lucky to have this, honored to have this. Bob, how you doing, my friend? Always a pleasure to see you. Steve Shaw, yes, sir. We had a good time on Friday, and we're going to share a little video of that. Of course, as I mentioned, Yvonne is here. Kelly, nice to see you as well. Oh, you've been out fishing and catching some donkeys lately, so good for you, and congratulations. We're living vicariously through you, Kelly. So as I mentioned, on Friday, Steve and I managed to get together. This is, we wanted to do this, and for no other reason. The Made in Canada Tackle Show was it was a huge success. And we wanted to give back. And one of the things that we heard from some of the charter captains is it was a tough year. They weren't getting a lot of bookings up front. And we want to give back in a way to help support those who support us. So Steve and I booked a charter with our good buddy, Jim Wilson. And as I said, it was an incredible day on the water. As you can see, a beautiful sunrise. That's Jim himself from fishhawk.net. Chatty guy. If you ever, and this was cool to see this show up, of course, to see our sponsors aboard a charter like this. That's fantastic. So that is the POW Casting Titan. And that side of the boat did catch quite a few fish. So I will say, I can't just speak of them because they are a partner, a sponsor, what have you. They work. The darn things work. And as I said, they did not spook the fish, but it was awfully cool to see that. Steve got hooked up early. Unfortunately, both of us were a little rusty. The first 4 that we hooked into, we lost. And we were lucky enough that Jim could continue to find us fish so that we could completely redeem ourselves. But as I said, there's some beautiful slabs that were caught. The chrome of Lake O was in full display, and I will say it was just awesome hanging out with 2 really, really cool guys. And I had the pleasure to hook into this. Not really sure how big it was, but let's just say big enough for me. Now, this here, I haven't seen one of these in a while, but I will say I have not seen one that size. I want to say it was 24 inches long, if it was an inch. It was a big beast, and watching Jim discard of it correctly, was cool to see. And of course, the mark that is left on these fish. And if there's anything I can suggest to you that Jay will probably back up later on in his segment, is how to deal with these properly, so that we're not letting them back in the wild, because unfortunately they don't do anything good for the fishery. And when you saw the mark on the side of that fish, you'll totally understand why. But we caught, I don't know how many we caught, but let's just say if you have not booked a charter to go out salmon fishing, this is one that I highly recommend. Jim finds the fish. He's on the fish. He knows the fish. He's out of Coburg. He does travel across the lake, and he does do multi-species. But right now, the salmon bite is hot. And anybody that knows that knows that. If you don't know, now you know. But most folks do know, and it has been absolutely ridiculously hot, the bite. So much so that next week we are going to dedicate the entire segment, our entire show, and we're going to post it early, because we want all the captains, all those who target salmon out on Lake O, to give us, I guess, their solution or their version of why this year is different than last year. What has gone on this year that has made this bite so spectacular? As I said, we went out, we were out there more to have fun. I just love being on the water, but we hooked into some fish, and we weren't alone. There was a lot of folks out there that hooked into some fish. But what we want to do is dedicate our next show next week to finding out why you think the salmon fishery has been on fire in comparison to last year, and why. What's the difference? What is different from this year to last year? We want to hear what you have to say. So needless to say, we will talk about that. But big shout out, thank you to Jim. We had a fantastic day out on the water, and I can't wait to do it again with yet another charter captain. What was that? That was the Friday. Then the Saturday, I made my way up to Elliott Lake because I could not miss the largest Algoma kids fishing derby that they put on. And I say, this was what an event, what a day. You had families show up with their kids. They sometimes had their own fishing rods in tow. Sometimes they counted on Chuck and all the volunteers to provide them a rod, which they took home. But there were also some side events, so that if you couldn't get down to the dock, or maybe fishing wasn't your kid's thing, they had like a little kiddies pool, so that you could fish without really fishing, making sure that everybody was inclusive and included in the event. But I'll tell you, some of the pictures that came out of this, it melts your heart. Absolutely melts your heart. So as I said, on the shores of Elliott Lake in Ontario, it's about a 6-hour drive north of Toronto. But what a facility. They have that entire beach line. This is down at Westview Park. So this is where everybody gathers for the lunch, for the awards. And of course, a big shout out. I know Chucky D, he will not take all the credit, although he deserves it. I do have to make mention to all the volunteers that helped out with this event. And I want to say this because I didn't get the opportunity up there. As much as we need the Grand Poobah to run this event, or at least have the idea and the forethought, we need you volunteers to buy in. And the amount of volunteers that were a part of this was absolutely incredible. You'll see from some of the crowd shots how many people showed up. But I'll tell you, the amount of volunteers that came, and they didn't just come to show up, throw on a jersey, and just be a part of it. They came to help. They were cooking. They were, handing out bags. They were measuring fish. They were just making sure that every kid and every family had a fantastic time. And I'll tell you, when you have that kind of A team, as Charles is mentioning, when you have that kind of A team put together, it's kind of hard not to have a success. So again, I can't say enough about the entire team that Chuck has put together. It was an honor for me to be up there. These are the facilities. So they have this city dock, the municipal dock here. The kids can fish off that. So, they line this dock and, of course, all the shoreline. But there was a whole bunch of species of fish caught. One thing I will say, I was amazed at the number of rock bass that were caught. I know, in Ontario, we have the privy of seeing a lot of rock bass. But unless you're, someone that targets docks, you don't necessarily see a lot of rock bass. Well, I did, and these kids certainly put on a clinic when it comes to catching rock bass. But yeah, fantastic area, fantastic venue. And as Chuck said, he had 200 kids registered because it looked like it was going to rain. I think we only ended up with 182. But really, this was my favorite pick of that whole weekend. Just some great stuff, great stories. Look at the smiles. So, of course, as I said, all the volunteers, but I believe Chuck has said that they've almost outgrown this venue because they have so many families from the community that show up. And not only just the community, some folks were coming from Sault Ste. Marie. So, as I said, huge buy-in, as you can tell by the crowd. Anybody that is dressed in a jersey, and you can see Pat there in the bottom, there's another jersey. Anybody that was wearing those jerseys was a volunteer, and there's quite a few of them in the crowd, as you will see. All the ones that were wearing those green shirts were the participants. Some left a little bit early. As I said, the rain did sort of dampen things at the end, but needless to say, everybody went away with a gift bag. Everybody went away with a full stomach, and as you can tell by the smiles, a great time. These are some of the prizes. Again, that gnome was fantastic. Anybody that caught, so we had first, second, and third for largest fish. That little guy was so embarrassed. Well, not embarrassed. He was so shy. But I'll tell you, these kids were so proud. Shimano, thanks so much for being able to help us out to spread some cheer with not only the most caught fish, but also the most species. And that one young angler managed to catch 4 species. But as I said, this is Algoma's largest kids fishing derby. And when you see the amount of work that goes into it, you totally understand why. So, Chuck, to you, to your staff, to your family, to your friends, to all your volunteers, to all the families that showed up, and all the mothers and dads, grandpas, neighbors, whoever it was that brought kids to this event, a big salute from CFN. As I said, you are fostering the future of fishing and the passion that we all love and cherish, and that's what brings us here every Monday. So again, that was an honor to be a part of that. Also, it's really cool to see our CFN community reach out when it comes to our vendors, those who sponsor some of our events, those who come to our Made in Canada tackle show. And Ava and Rocky ended up at Triple Threat Lures, and they visited where they do all their work, whether it be their painting, some of their casting, whatever it is that they're doing to produce these incredible baits that we had the pleasure of using when we were out on Lake O, Steve and I. So much so that it inspired Ava, this young phenom right here, to design some of her own flashers. So that's her in the background. If you saw that, she's got her own designed flashers. So she's hand drawing some of these really cool flashers. Anyway, when you see that kind of stuff, again, melts this big guy's heart. I love seeing that kind of buy-in and that kind of paying it back, if you will, to the community. So really cool. And Pat, thank you. I also got a gift, and I forgot to bring it up here, and I apologize, but we will make sure that we put it on the wall so that it's front and center. But it is the coolest thing. If you saw the shot, it's on my timeline. Of all things, it's a birdhouse. Until I saw the hole, I didn't realize what it was. I'm just thinking, this is really cool. But you can hang it up from the bobber, and it's actually a birdhouse. It's got like a little stand for the bird to sit. Anyway, it's the coolest thing. But thanks to Pat and Chuck for that. But yeah, Tony, it is Elliott Lake. It is not. It's right on the shore. So basically, as you're in town, it's right there. Westview Park is right there. And of course, the water is right on the. It's really cool. Anyway, they're going to be having, hopefully, fingers crossed, this event next year. We are definitely going to be there if they do, because we love to be a part of such greatness. And of course, it was a big honor. I love that drive up to Elliott Lake. I absolutely love that drive. It is, of course, we didn't have Tourney Tuesday last week, and the CFN Fish Off continues. So with that in mind, Mike Consul, who's unable to join us tonight, but will be with us tomorrow to give away 2 Next Save combos to 2 lucky winners. So it'll be week 2 and week 3 that we'll be handing these out. And Mike has a little message for us, so have a listen.
Everyone, Mike Consul here. Thanks for joining us on CFN Live every Monday. I just want to give you an update with multi-species madness as well as the CFN Fish Off, which is happening right now. If you are not registered for either of those, you can still register now. There is just over 14 days left, which means if you think you can catch 10 species, sign up for multi-species madness. If you're fishing anytime between now, and August 5th, sign up for the CFN Fish Off because we have great prizes and cash to be won. So the CFN Fish Off is free. Every single fish you catch is a ballot into various draws. Come fish, come submit your entries. We would love to see your catches. And for those who are interested in winning cash, go register for multi-species madness. The current pot is $1,140. And the more people that register, the higher that pot goes. So first gets over $1,000. Second, third, fourth, and fifth, you all win cash as well. So sign up. We have 444 anglers across Canada signed up for the CFN Fish Off, and we're approaching 2,500 fish entered. We want to see your fish. If you're not entered, be part of the 444. Sign up. All you got to do, 144. Sign up. All you got to do is go to anglersatlas.com/events to do so and join us. Go to anglersatlas.com/events to do so and join us tomorrow 7:30 for Tourney Tuesday. We have 2 next save combos to give away, and if you entered a fish in week 2 or you entered a fish in week 3, you have a ballot in those draws and you might be taking home a Shimano next save. So join us, Scotty and I, at 7:30 Eastern. All you got to do is go to the CFN Fish Off page or the Canadian Fishing Network page and check it out. We will see you tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern, for our Shimano prize draws. Peace. Take a kid out fishing. Have fun.
Amen. Well said, Mike. Absolutely. Take a kid out fishing. Because I'll tell you, if you do, not only will the child benefit, but you as well. Because spreading that kind of passion, that kind of joy is what it's all about. Ed, you're 100% right. I should have stopped by. Steve is as my witness. We didn't get a lot of sleep, and I just wanted to make it home, dude. we were under the gun, and we were so excited to get out in the water together that neither of us slept all that much. The Friday before, I had to leave the house at 2 a.m. To be there at the ramp around 4:30, I think it was, or 4 whatever. So yeah, needless to say, I was a little sleepy and I just wanted to make it home, but definitely I'll be coming out to see you soon. Also, we have our good buddy Richard Dunlop, who's making his way out to Elmer Lake Lodge shortly, but he wanted to give you these teases again. If you know what these are, because we mentioned them last week, some CFN swag is now available. It will be available officially when Richard gets back, but a big shout out to Richard for putting this together. He's the one that's going to be taking all the orders. It's kind of a unique way of how we have to do the ordering. We can't order them one at a time. We have to order them 4 at a time. So basically, get some folks together. If you have an interest in, these are flex fit hats. I think we're going to be selling them for $30. I'm not 100% sure. This is almost like a hockey jersey more so than a hoodie, but they're light. They fit big. So if you're a large, don't worry. A large will fit nice. If you're an XL, they fit like an XL or slightly bigger. So the sizing is actually bang on, but err on the side of caution. So if you're like me and you sometimes wear a double X, get a triple X just to make sure. As I said, they fit perfectly. They fit on the large size, but we will be making those available once Richard gets back. Just a couple other things before we bring on Yvonne. I'm happy to say the OFC Nation retreat is booked solid. It's booked. So if you are interested in becoming or joining us at Camp McIntosh in September, unfortunately, you can't. It's booked. I'm sorry, but I'm so thrilled to hear that it is booked. That's so cool. So not only have we managed to book Camp McIntosh, we've also managed to book Horwood Lake Lodge, which is happening very, very shortly. It's only a couple weekends away. Really looking forward to heading up there to see Warren and Doris. As I said, we have the pleasure of experiencing some great northern fisheries at Camp McIntosh and Horwood Lake Lodge. So we're looking forward to doing that. And we're hoping to see a lot of our CFN and OFC Nation community up there. That's what makes it all worthwhile. That's it for announcements. Let's bring in Yvonne right after a word from our sponsor.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is Yvonne. How you doing, Yvonne?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Right on, right on. It's always a pleasure to see Yvonne Brown. Always interested to see what you're up to. And one thing I will say lately, especially, OWA is very busy with events, upcoming events, and a whole bunch of other stuff in between.
Yeah, it never stops. We've got some, we had some great events during the year, but I actually was going to post the link. We have a fall trip, as we do every year. This time we're going to Scotsman's Point. It's on Buckhorn Lake. And of course, I forget the date. Hang on a second. It's the 26th of September to the 29th. And we still have spots left. I'll at some point put the link in there for you.
Okay.
But we have 30 ladies.
Could they go to your website to see it as well? Is it on the website?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there too. It's there's 30 ladies going so far. And during the same weekend at the same location, we're also doing our intro to muskie fishing, which we do in partnership with the Kawartha Lakes chapter of Muskies Canada.
Very cool.
I think we will have 10 boaters for that. And I'm not too sure if we're going to do like we did in the past, where we have 20 ladies in the morning and 20 in the afternoon, or if we'll just do 20 and they'll have a full day of muskie fishing. I'm not sure. But yeah, so that's really exciting too.
That is exciting. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And how is the muskie fishing out there right now? Have you heard? Like, I haven't heard anything about muskie outside of what's going on in the St. Lawrence.
No, I haven't really got out in the water a lot this past few months, just different life things have come up. But as you were talking about, and Michael with his message about taking a kid fishing, next week I have my grandson Kalen coming. I've got him for the whole week, and he's going to go fishing for the first time with Granny. So he's got his own rod and everything, and we're just going to do some dock fishing for like sunfish or whatever. But he's never caught a fish before.
Wow.
And so it's going to be really exciting. And then my mom's going to come up for a few days, and maybe we'll take I've got a boat now. I got it last year, but a new to me boat, and maybe he calls her Gigi because for great granny, because I'm Granny. So it's going to be Granny, Gigi, and Kaylin out, maybe out in the boat for a little while, and we'll just see. We'll see how it goes when I try to back down the ramp. That's my only challenge.
It's funny you talk about dock fishing. Having the pleasure of being amongst all those kids up at Elliott Lake, they dock fishing to me was the ultimate, and to see it the same with these kids that they love dock fishing, and I'm like, this is what it's all about, because this is what got me into fishing. Yeah. Now, of course, once you jump in the boat and you get to go to different areas on the lake, well, holy smokes, my mind was blown.
Oh yeah,
but to me, dock fishing is what started it. That's what started it for me. And I think it's, you know what, we underrate that they're completely underrated docks, but they can do so much to provide a young angler a great time, an exciting time. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. And that's just about it. We will have so we have the Scotsman's Point. We have the Muskies, the Intro to Muskie event, and we also have our Gals and Pals tournament coming up later in August. So
Cool.
yeah, we're looking forward to it.
As I said, OWA is always busy, and you guys have some great events. It's nice to see all the ladies' picks. And as Steve said, we love sharing some of the edits of some of your events and some of the fish that are caught. So
Sure thing.
don't be shy. Make sure to send them to Steve. He knows a guy or two.
He's got an in.
That's it. Now, our guest tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you run into Maria? She seems, I can't wait to meet her because she seems absolutely fascinating. But where?
Yeah, she reached out to me, I think it was last year, and she's friends with Alyssa Lloyd.
Yes.
And Alyssa had told me that that Maria was planning to do this women's weekend and told her to connect with me. So, anyways, they're up at Lake of the Woods. And they're doing this women's weekend, which is actually this coming weekend. I think it's 4 nights. I can't remember the dates exactly. And she had asked initially if I would, come up and help, but it was just like the time to travel, like it's 2 days traveling and then 2 days home. And it was just like, I can't take that much time off work. So, but I would have loved to gone. Maybe next year if I plan properly, I can get up there. But so she just reached out. She told me about the event, that she wanted to provide something for women in her community. And yeah, I just thought, well, let's try and see if we can promote it a little bit.
Well, without further ado, let's bring Maria in so she can do herself and ourselves justice by introducing herself to our community, as well as give us a little bit of 411 on the event. Maria, salutations from CFN. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Steve. I'm good. How are you?
Living the dream, as they say. Living the dream. Now, I have to say, where are you located right now? Because it looks like you are in God's country, or at least it looks like it from where we're sitting.
Pretty close. So we're up in Miles Bay on Lake of the Woods. We're based out of Morrison, Ontario. So Lake of the Woods is huge, as most people know. It borders Ontario, Manitoba, and Minnesota. So saying Lake of the Woods could be quite vague. So we're specifically, out of Morrison. We have a landing right off the 621 highway where we have a launch, dock space, parking, and then the lodge itself is out in Miles Bay, 12 miles about from Morrison.
Oh, okay.
So currently I'm kind of sitting behind me is our guest docks and where we have most of our boats. We do have a couple other auxiliary docks that we use just for camp boats and work boats. But this is pretty much my office every day.
Oh, it's a hard life.
I know, that's tough. I don't know how you cope, Maria. I really don't. I'm so glad it's you and not me.
I'm thinking that might be my internet lagging a bit. We're working with what we have in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. Yeah. So how did this event come about? I don't know if it was something like that you and Alyssa talked about, or it was something that you wanted to do and get the message out to the female angling community.
Yeah, so it was a kind of a little bit like a few different people kind of influenced. I will give a shout out to Jessie Baker because she is super inspiring. She does a women's muskie retreat up at Cedar Island Lodge, which is, as the crow flies, maybe 40-50 miles east of us up over here. So I saw that she did that and I was like, oh, that's super cool. I wasn't too much into muskie fishing at that point. I'm not going to say I'm even into it now, but I have the itch. So I was like, oh, it's really cool. And I was telling my boss, Wayne, who's one of the owners of Grassy Narrows Lodge, about it. And he's always been such a champion for like women going out and just doing it. He's a girl dad. Both his daughters, kind of grew up running skid steers, fishing, hunting. So it was kind of cool. I have 2 dads almost. So I was talking to him about it. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool if we could do that, And he's like, you know what? Just block a whole few days off from camp. So we have 5 nights, I believe it is. So camp is going to be just women. Any male staff of mine, they're all going to either go to the neighboring camp or they're going to take a couple days off. So it's just going to be ladies, which is huge. I was pretty floored when he kind of suggested that, because I know the ins and outs workings of this place. So I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, if you think we can make that work, like let's give it a shot, right? I'm here for pilot projects completely. So yeah, it was just really cool.
I will say I wish that we would have been able to started promoting it a little bit earlier for you, but again, I didn't realize until I saw the ad today that it's coming up. Like it's basically next weekend.
Yeah, so it starts on Saturday. Some of the girls, like Alyssa, who are kind of helping me facilitate and organize and manage everything, they're going to be arriving Friday. So at least we have that little bit of downtime to kind of organize, get ourselves situated, and have that downtime before the circus starts. The exciting circus, but it's gonna be a lot. My daily life here is kind of just always like that. So I think it's going to be a calm transition for me. Like I'm actually looking forward to the little bit of downtime from not running circles and just kind of taking care of the day to day.
That's awesome. That is so
That's
awesome.
great.
I did go on your website and I was intrigued to see the number of cabins you have, the quality of the venue itself. Is there a main lodge too, Maria? I'm assuming there's got to be a main lodge.
Yep. So we have 8 guest cabins. They kind of range in size from 2 to 10 people, just depending what group sizes are coming out. They all, like all of camp runs on running potable water, flush toilets. So it's kind of like all the creature comforts of home. And then we do have a big main lodge. That's where our dining room is. We do have American plan for this year. We have a little lounge area with the big TV. So that's where we watch all the hockey, just so everyone knows. It's that or the deck. When it's nice out, like for playoffs, we move our big flat screen out onto this deck that got built over COVID. I can't remember exactly. I want to say 16 by 30 something feet. It's all screened in. It's right off the lodge. We have internet up there. So it's kind of the little gathering place. You can sit out, watch all the boats come in, hear all the laughs and all the camaraderie down on the docks of who caught what. So yeah, it's just a real gem of a place.
That's so cool.
So what kind of activities will be happening during the weekend? I mean, obviously fishing, but I remember when you and I first talked, you were going to do some like clinics on how-tos and whatnot. Will that still be a part?
For sure. So I was super fortunate to meet Kay Hawley as well. I met her down at the Discover Boating Show in Minneapolis. I want to say it was this past March. Coincidentally, just somehow met somebody who knew her at the Hummingbird booth. And then I was over at the St. Croix booth with one of the guys from Nestor Falls and ended up meeting her and was like, oh, you were the lady I was looking for a couple days ago. So she's a crackerjack walleye fisherman, electronics right across the board. So Hummingbird, Garmin, Lawrence, like she's just right dialed in. So she's going to be helping kind of with that aspect of things. Like, for me, I do more the day-to-day boat operation, kind of just the whole camp stuff. So I'm not necessarily in the boat all day. I don't have a lot of experience with the high-tech ins and outs. Like I'm kind of just the girl to go out and jig for walleye. And, I thought it was kind of comical that we mentioned rock bass earlier. Piles of rock bass up here. It's one of my favorite things in the wintertime. It's a great snack. So Kay's going to be handling more of the technical stuff. Alyssa, like we know, she is a muskie fiend. So she's going to be taking on more of that aspect. And she's really just kind of helped me navigate what we should be thinking about, what we should be looking at. Kay as well, she's a retired high school teacher. So she's got that organization, thinking of all the little things that I might overlook looking at the big picture every day. So I'm just super fortunate that I had women like that. So we're going to do walleye clinics, downrigging, pulling cranks, jigging, the musky stuff. I know Alyssa and I were talking about bucktails and some lighter baits and lures that we could use. The water's super warm right now. We're anywhere from 72 to 76 degrees on surface. So it's kind of interesting. We've had a bout of humidity and the weather's been strange. So that's what we're kind of looking at fishing wise, but not only the fishing aspect of it. Like I said, if women want to learn how to back up a trailer or drive a boat, tiller console.
I want to learn.
That's my bread and butter, right? Like I learned how to back up a trailer at quite a young age, and like I think my biggest feat was something that my dad used to always brag about, backing up 2 hay wagons uphill, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I did.
Oh, boy.
Can you do
that's
2 hay wagons? Can
yeah.
you? No way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's 4 pivot points. Yeah, 4 pivot
Yep.
points.
Yeah.
So that's like my background. My dad's a heavy equipment mechanic, and I was his shadow basically. I grew up on a international harvester dealership in Stratton. So tractors, kind of stuff like that. I went to school for heavy equipment mechanics. I did 4 years in my early 20s at the gold mine here in the district. So I was a senior production driller there. That kind of stuff is just almost second nature to me at this point. So I'm excited to learn more fishing technical wise. Like there's gonna be a lot of tech stuff, but then also the basic stuff, lake safety, reading maps, knowing what to do in a situation if you get stranded out in the lake in inclement weather, or you break down, you hit a rock. It happens. It happens.
Cool.
That's awesome. I didn't know anything about her, like all this background stuff.
Well, this is the best part of it. I have to say that.
Yeah, I know.
I could just tell, like, when you're I saw some of the pictures that Yvonne shared. You can tell you love the outdoors. You definitely don't mind getting your hands dirty because, you fillet fish, like probably how many fish do you fillet a year?
Not as many as I probably think I do, to be honest. It sometimes it feels like a lot, and it depends. Spring and fall, we have piles of crappie. And it depends too if we have guests in camp who aren't necessarily familiar with cleaning fish, or sometimes you get the guys who've been coming up here for 30, 40 years. They can do it blindfolded as well. So yeah, and that's another thing we're going to be teaching women too. Anybody who wants to learn how to clean fish, we're here for it. I'm not going to teach anyone how to clean northern pike because I'm not super fond of them. They're kind of they're slimy. Not here for that, but we'll do crappie, rock bass if anybody wants, and definitely walleye.
Maria, if there's any advice that I give you when it comes to filleting pike, if you do decide to go down that path, I saw this tip, and I wish I had seen it earlier, but Andre up at Camp McIntosh puts all his pike in a burlap sack. He shakes them around, and he gets all the slime off the fish in the burlap. So when he pulls it back out, it's sticky and not slimy, and it makes it so much easier to fillet. If you go down that road, try and find some burlap, sandbags, like the sandbags that they sell. They come in so handy. And as I said, Andre showed us that trip a couple years back at McIntosh, and I was like, brilliant. So
that is cool. And I know putting them on ice for a couple hours beforehand too helps with like how soft they are. Like I said, Wayne's tried getting me to learn how, and it's kind of one of those things I'm avoiding it because if I don't know how, I don't necessarily have to do it. I can pick and choose at this point.
That's so cool. Now, you are part of our First Nations, and I do have to ask: has that helped? Has that hindered? Tell us, from your standpoint, now that you are affiliated with Grassy Narrows, and now, in my opinion, a part of our angling community. How were you received? Were you welcomed with open arms? How was that journey? Yeah,
you know what? It's not something we really think about in that sense up here, just because that's just our community. It's just a blended community. When I started back here 10 years ago, fresh out of college, I started housekeeping, and I was kind of on and off, did a bunch of little jobs basically when Wayne needed help. But there was always the bulk of the workforce up here is First Nations. Like I'm going to go out on a limb and say 70% of my staff are First Nations. There was absolutely no problem coming in and doing it. Honestly, the biggest struggle with me going into this business with that background is traveling into the States. And you know what? This has happened in Southern Ontario as well. It's just the lack of knowledge and lack of information on current issues, past issues, all stuff like that. So you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt to a degree, some of the, I guess, feedback you get, even if it's not super pleasant. But it's just, it's kind of more of an education thing. And same thing with the fisheries. Like, to me, protecting that fishery is one of my biggest priorities. It is my biggest priority, because without that fishery, then we don't necessarily have a business, right? So that kind of circles back to that is I have huge beliefs in reciprocity. So what we take, we need to give back tenfold as well. So as long as we keep that going, and that's something I learned from a few elders of mine as well, is reciprocity is key. So that's the way I kind of see it. But yeah, it's select here and there, hit and miss. Certain places I go for shows, people don't even necessarily know, but I'm very adamant on making sure I have my big beaded earrings on, anything kind of birch bark. That's my little touch of my background that I get to wear in my day to day. Obviously out here, I kind of look a lot different. I'm Marv out here, jokingly we say, but yeah, the wintertime is when I get to dress up and be a girl, and out here I'm just doing what I need to do to make the clock turn. So yeah, a little bit of both.
Are there any like environmental issues or anything going on like in the outdoors or the fishing communities that is threatening to where you are from, or like where you live, or the lakes that you fish?
Oh, did you hear the question, Maria?
Ooh, I cut out there a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I got the bulk of it. It was kind of just what's some of the threats that we see for the fishery here. There are invasive species. Obviously, we've had the zebra mussel that has been around for a little bit. Oh, I want to say at least over 10 years. I'm not 100% sure on all this, but the spiny water flea are also moving in as well. So there's been kind of a huge push for boat washing stations. Obviously, clean, drain, dry is huge. So that right now is kind of our biggest one. But we also recently, there's a new slot size on walleye in our zone. So there's nothing between, I think, 16 and 3/4 inches all the way up to 27.5 inches. So we're kind of, I think what the ministry is trying to do is protect that size slot of walleye, just because that's what the lesser population is on the lake. So I'm all for and we haven't had too much pushback on it. Like, everyone seems pretty happy. Like, there's a lot of fish that size. In my opinion, the 15, 16 inches are the best eaters anyways, so there's no need to go against anything bigger. But yeah, we're starting to see a lot more kind of in that high 20s, high 20s getting up there. I haven't seen a 30 incher yet in a boat that I've been in this year, but the season is young.
That is so awesome. And yes, you know, it's something that we have tried to hammer home, the need to put back those larger fish. Those are the breeders. And Gord Pizer, who's probably been mentioning this and has been worried since the mid to late 90s, how much pressure is put on the Lake of the Woods walleye. And, you know, just recently, I think maybe forward-facing sonar has really escalated that concern, that we have to be mindful, we have to be ethical, we have to follow the rules when it comes to the walleye in Lake of the Woods, because I don't think perhaps people realize how fragile that fishery can be. And as you just mentioned, Maria, if you start taking out those 21 to 26 inch walleye, which are your big females, that can have detrimental effects on any walleye fishery, but especially Lake of the Woods. So I think that's so awesome. And being part of the First Nations, we have one of our legacy members, Erica, who's also First Nations and participating in the CFN Fish Off. And a lot of people were, I shouldn't say, there was a few people that were concerned, she doesn't have to follow the rules. Like, this isn't going to be a fair competition. One thing I can say, and I'm very proud of Erica, is that even though she has that status card, she doesn't use it in a way that would be unethical, if you will, or take more than she needs to. She is an incredibly ethical angler, and Maria, you seem no different. I think that's so awesome. Fantastic stuff.
Yep, we do what we can, and it takes everyone to kind of take care of it, right? So as we just try to tell as many people as we can and spread the word.
Steve's concerned that you might have to do CPR with your dog. Check his pulse.
This is Arlo. He's our camp doofus. He's a sweetie, but yeah, he's kind of my shadow. So I think he's just slowly been coming into the frame.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I haven't been able to the overlay that I have. Of course, we're talking about the workshops, we're talking about the actual fishing, all the accommodations, the meals, some of the things to expect when you're up there, some of the species of fish that you can target while you're up there. It is, as you mentioned, a 5-day event that starts on the 27th of July. Are there still openings?
Yeah, we still have a few openings. We're expecting, I think it's 12 to 14 women for the bulk of the trip. There's some ladies who have to go in earlier, come in a little late just for prior commitments and families. But yeah, I think there's still plenty of space. We're more than welcome. We are a little bit of a drive from Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
Alyssa and I were actually kind of just talking about this morning, is people sometimes think that Ontario ends at Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie. And then they get to Thunder Bay and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much more Ontario. And then they get up here and they're like, what? But they completely understand where Winnipeg is. So it's kind of comical in that sense. We're closer to Winnipeg than we are any other kind of city in Ontario.
Yeah, I'm also a member with, and I don't know if you have any connections with the Wisconsin Women Fish.
Not yet. I think I'm into Minnesota right now, but.
Oh, okay. Well, Barb Carey's run Wisconsin Women Fish for I'm not too sure how many years, and they did a trip into Canada up as I think it's Red Lake north of Kenora.
Oh, yep.
So they had some openings, and she reached out and she said, "Hey, would any of your ladies like to come and join us?" Thinking, it's maybe 7-8 hour drive. It's like 22 to 24 hours of driving plus breaks and stuff. So here they're thinking, maybe they just thought we were just closer to the border or like closer to that area. But
it's amazing to think, Yvonne, that it is the equal to go up to Red Lake from where we are here in Southern Ontario. You can drive to Florida in the same amount of time.
Oh, really?
It's the same distance, same amount of time travel. It's crazy to think, but it is the truth that this province of ours is so massive. And to your point, sometimes when we get up to Sudbury, we think we've come to the edge, and we're not even at the halfway point.
Yes, yeah. And I've driven twice, like once to Red Lake and once to Kenora. And once you get, and they say beyond the Sault Ste. Marie, it changes, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I hope that everybody at some point in their lives gets an opportunity to see, beyond the Southern Ontario, beyond Sudbury and North Bay.
Amen. Maria, Catherine is asking a really cool question, and it might help get some numbers. But is there an airport close by?
Yep. So it kind of depends where you're flying in from. The Winnipeg airport is about 3.5 hours away if you're cutting through the northwest angle of Minnesota. So you could take that south route as I'm pointing at the map, or you could cut up north through Kenora and down. That's about 6 hours. Thunder Bay is also about 6 hours from here. But if you flew into International Falls, Minnesota, it's about an hour and a half. So International Falls is definitely a smaller airport. It's not an international airport by any means, but it's just right across the border from Fort Frances.
That would be good.
Right on.
I take that route. I don't know if I want to do that drive again.
I think in everyone's life at some point they should at least do the North Shore drive, like around the Great Lakes, and then also that north route way above. So I went to New Brunswick a couple years ago, and I took the North Shore down and then the north route back up. And again, it took me 2 days to get to Ottawa, but from Ottawa to New Brunswick, it was a day. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Yvonne, I can't believe that we've already surpassed the half hour as we always do when we meet great people. But any last questions or comments that you wanted to make before we have to bid Marie farewell?
No, I just want to wish the best of luck with the weekend. I hope everything goes well and everybody enjoys, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the pictures.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yvonne. And thank you again for this opportunity. This is super cool that I get to do this in the middle of literally nowhere.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, again, Marie, thanks so much for joining us and introducing yourself to our CFN community. Give Alyssa a big hug for me. I love her dearly. She's an awesome, awesome gal.
Yes.
You bet. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Okay.
Awesome. As always, Yvonne. Yet another fantastic guest doing some fantastic things, and especially Oh, yes, absolutely. I look forward so much to having her on. And what's really cool, the next ladies' night that we're going to have next month, Lorianne Hurst is going to be coming on, because there's yet another women's event that's going to be going on at Waterfalls Lodge that Lorianne's going to tell us about. And I met Teresa, who's one of the owners of Waterfalls up at Elliott Lake this past weekend, and she is an absolute riot. So if we put Lorianne and Teresa, we might just be able to sit back and let the two do their thing.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just, stay off screen or something.
Absolutely. Right on, Yvonne. Well, thanks so much for joining us, as you always do. You do some fantastic things, not only for our CFN community, but of course, women anglers at large. And to all the OWA ladies, keep up the great work.
My pleasure.
Right on.
I'll see you soon.
We're gonna have Lawrence Gunther up next, right after a word from our sponsor. Take care, Yvonne.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
Lawrence Gunther in the house.
Sight and sound, I'm hoping.
Yes, absolutely. In full effect. Stereo. It's max headroom. Here we are.
There's me, my big head, and my crackly voice. We're all good to go, buddy. All good. That's good. Hey, that was fascinating. Hey, what a great interview. What a great topic. And just makes you want to travel up there. I've been up there a couple of times, and it really is the other end of the world, in terms of distances. But it's still Ontario. It's crazy.
It is. And that's the part that it just amazes me when people say, what do you mean you haven't been to Red Lake? What do you mean you haven't been up to Lake of the Woods? Well, I don't have a float plane, and I don't have a lot of air miles. I don't have a lot of time off. I don't think you guys realize how far away it is. And again, we are just so blessed. And we say it, I know, time and time again to exhaustion, how lucky we are to live in the country of Canada, but of course the province of Ontario, that has so much land and so much water. But when it was said to me that it takes as much time to drive to Florida as it does to the Winnipeg or the Manitoba Ontario border, that just puts everything in perspective.
Oh yeah, it totally does. That's fantastic. Yeah,
Well,
I got a few bits of news for you to share, buddy. But is there anything you wanted to grill me on, and anything sort of topical?
Well, Steve has brought up basically an HABs. I'm not sure what HABs are. I'm drawing a blank there. Threatening drinking water quality, negatively impact recreational activities, and degrade fish and wildlife habitat. These blooms are primarily caused by excess phosphorus, which enters Lake of the Woods from a number of sources, including the Rainy River. Is this like green algae? Are we talking about?
Yeah, it's algae. It's algae, but not all green algae, blue-green algae is the same, right? Most blue-green algae is fine. It's not toxic,
Right.
If you have a few days of cloud, it dies. It sinks to the bottom of the lake. It starts to decompose, and you can end up with some, lack of oxygen down there where the fish live, and that can be problematic. But some of this blue-green algae can definitely be toxic, and you don't know until you test it. And the Lake of the Woods is so huge, right? It's so huge. You got the south end, which is shallow and nutrient rich because of the river and agriculture and all that stuff, septic systems. And you got all this nutrients in the water and all these giant blooms where everyone cottages, a lot of Americans cottage especially. And then you go to the northern half of the lake, or northern 2/3 of the lake, and I don't know the term for it, but it's very nutrient starved. And the water's super clear. There's not a lot of nutrients in the lake. Any loss of any weed bed whatsoever, like to those rusty red craws that are in there now, can be devastating to the muskie and walleye population up north.
Interesting. Well, Steve, I don't know if we answered your question, but HABs is definitely something that I'm going to Google the minute I get off here so that I know a little bit more. But what was really cool, and I wanted to say this to you, I did mention it before we went live. My son Jake is out east right now enjoying Newfoundland, and all the wonderful treasures it has to offer. But he showed me a picture. He's out on a boat that I believe his girlfriend's dad is either a charter captain or a commercial angler. They went out to fish for cod. And I know we talked about it in a previous show, the cod stocks and the opening up and the increase of catch that we're now, or at least our East Coast anglers are now going to enjoy.
The personal catch and the commercial fishery being reopened for the first time in like 32 years. Yeah.
There you go. And he just basically sent me a picture, and I don't want to say I will definitely show it next week. We'll talk about it a little bit next week, but he said it's in really good shape. That's basically what I'm going to say. He said everything that you guys talked about on live was bang on. The cod fishery is alive and well.
You know, when you're on them. Like these cods are schooling fish. You find the school, you can do really well. And that was the big problem leading up to the closure in 1992. With the adding technology onto these boats, GPS and satellite communication and radio frequency where you do triangulation and on and on and on and on. You could find the fish and stay on them and track them and go back to them, and with the sonar find them again. And it took increasingly less amount of time to find them and catch them. So everyone thought there's lots of fish, because you could find them so quickly and start catching them again really fast and catch lots, because once you're on them, it's a feeding frenzy, and they just bite. It's like sitting over top of a school of sunfish. They just they're all snapping away down there. But it gave all the fishers a sense of false impression that the stock was still very healthy, but the stock in fact was getting smaller and smaller. And because of the technology, they could still find what was left and fish it, seriously, and do really well until all of a sudden, boom, it was pretty much gone, right? And that's when they closed the fishery. And even then, a lot of the fishers said, no, there's lots of fish. There's lots of fish. That was the big fight. And you can go back to newsreels and you hear the fighting and the arguing about this between the scientists and the politicians and the fishers. So I think fishers have learned that you can't just trust what you're picking up with your rod and your line. You got to look at the big picture, and that's the science. When they go out with the trawl nets and they look and they go into areas that normally they have a whole bunch of areas that they check, and they go and check all those areas, and then they say no fish, no fish, no fish, 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 no fish, no fish, no fish, and that's how they determine the size of the stock. But it's not a precise science at all. They really have to sample all these areas and to come up with sort of a best guess.
Well, as I said, you're a wealth of information, and what we did talk about, I saw in full effect when I saw the pictures. The proof was in the pudding, and I will say that is the beautiful thing about Bluefish Canada and Bluefish Radio. If you missed this podcast or any others that Lawrence and I have done, you can go to a wealth of resource at Bluefish Canada, but make sure you go to Bluefish Radio if you have missed any of those podcasts that Lawrence has done, not only with CFN, but with a host of other characters, by all means.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you stream on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us some rankings, give us some notes, give us some feedback. It's very much appreciated. That feedback, those rankings, really are crucial in terms of other people finding the podcast. With over I think 5 million podcasts out there right now, there's a lot of podcasts to choose from.
So cool. Steve has already Googled it for us. HABs are an acronym for hazardous algae blooms.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's simple. Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it. All right, I know you've got a few news items that you want to share. Batter up.
So they think there's more and more blue whales. Those are the biggest whales in the ocean in the Antarctic, right? They were fished out of there by Europeans and by Americans that went down the coast of North America, the East Coast, and went into the Antarctic, chased them around through there, and then up into the Pacific. And the scientists are listening, and they said there's more and more sounds of blue whales showing up in the Antarctic. And over the last 20 years, and they say this population is definitely coming back. So that's good news.
That's fantastic news. But I would say, are we doing them a disservice by mentioning that?
What's that?
Are we doing the whales a disservice by mentioning that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
You know, we got to look at the context, right? Like, where are their fish? Where are the salmon? Where aren't there salmon? Where are there whales? Where aren't there whales? And this allows us to take precautionary approaches, not only to be conservative, but to also to open up fisheries. You know, here, like for example, you know, they say the Icelandic people, they in medieval times, they were harvesting blue whales, believe it or not. You know, 500, 600, 700, 800 years ago, before there was any sort of technology. We're talking wooden boats or skin-made boats, and going out there and spearing these whales that are 60 feet long, the size of, you know, giant buses with the accordion buses. It just it boggles the mind that they have the chutzpah to go out and do that.
It does. I have to agree. Sometimes I remember seeing scale drawings that if you put 3 buses in a row, that was the size of a blue whale. And then you see these skiffs, these wooden skiffs, that, you know, our native folks, our First Nations would go out and harvest these whales. And I hazard a guess, I'm sure we lost a few along the way.
What can you imagine?
An easy endeavor.
You do a lot of praying and a lot of hoping, and you carried a lot of rabbit feet with you in your pocket to go out there and do that. That's for sure. And here's a native tribe in Washington State on the United States West Coast that has just won back the right to harvest gray whales. So this is part of their heritage, and they said, look, you know, for ceremonial and celebrations and social, we want to continue our values and exercise our values, maybe not necessarily through food, but they've won the right to harvest 25 gray whales over the next 10 years. And I'll tell you, this was hard fun. There was a lot of environmental groups, a lot of people, politicians who had said, no, you can't hunt whales. It's the wrong thing to do. It's you know, it led to all sorts of disasters before, and it's just morally wrong to kill a whale. But these people said, no, this is what we do. We want to exercise our rights and celebrate who we are. So they won the right to harvest 25 gray whales over the next 10 years. And to win that right, they obviously had some scientific evidence behind them as well, that this would be well within the cautionary zone of rebuilding those whale, you know, whatever they call them, herds or pods or whatever. So that's pretty cool. And then you look at, you know, right here in Canada, you know, we have Inuit whalers. They're hunting narwhals and belugas and whales up in the Arctic of Canada. And you know, we think we go at it. That's you know, to do what you think is right. You know, follow the science, follow the best practices, and that's what you feel you need to do, and that's part of who you are. Then, you know, fill your boots. It's what you do. You know.
It's really, so cool that you bring this up, because we do have Douglas, who's part of our CFN community, and he shared with us, I think it was 2 years back. They do it every year. As you said, it's an annual thing. It's a tradition. But he shared it with us so that it would open our eyes to what this means to the community, what this means to the survival of the community. And I guess, you know, we get the impression that, oh, they're just going out and they're harvesting these poor whales, and, you know, what a bloodbath and blah, blah, blah. And of course, we have seen videos that, you know, sort of alarm us, sort of question, you know, that behavior. But Douglas, he presented it in such a way that it really hit home for me. Yeah. That this seasonal annual tradition that they do is the reason that their community continues to survive. There's no part of the whale that's not used. That blubber gets them through, you know, a hard winter when, you know, food is difficult to find. Not only are they able to keep some of their lights going, it provides, you know, a means of cooking even. But yeah, it was so cool. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's something that I don't think gets put on the stage. We look at the negative aspect of it first before we look at the positive.
Oh, we're quick to condemn, right? And you know, and there's groups out there that condemn fishing and hunting and
True
in
enough.
general, and because they think it's morally wrong to eat animals, and we should all be vegan. So everyone has their beliefs and their values, but you can't force them on other people. You got to follow the science. You got to respect history too.
Amen.
You can't just sort of make people change because all of a sudden you decide that it's not acceptable anymore.
Great point. Absolutely great point.
But here's something else that goes the other way. Hang on. Oh, yeah. So sharks, right? We've been worried about sharks for quite a long time. And now in around Hawaii, they're finding that hammerhead sharks are starting to school up. We never think of hammerhead sharks as schooling. Always think of them as solo hunters, like sharks are out for themselves. And, the only time they ever get together is when there's a giant feeding frenzy going on, a lot of blood being spilled in the water, and they all smell it, come to get their piece of the action. But these fish are actually schooling up. And, so sharks are doing well there. And we're also hearing off the coast of Florida, the recreational anglers and the guides out there, they're feeling that they're paying the tax man way too often. And you know what that means, paying the tax man? It has nothing to do with Revenue Canada or the IRS in the United States. It means when you catch a fish and you're trying to reel it in, and a shark comes and takes a big chunk of your fish, it takes the first half, the back half, the middle half, that's paying the tax man, right? And you can't avoid it. And they're thinking they're paying way too much taxes now, and the sharks are just so plentiful. Or maybe the sharks have become, habitualized to the point where they know if there's a boat and there could be some fishing happening there, and a lot of fish in distress, just wait and they'll show up. So maybe they're getting smart. Maybe there's just more sharks, but it's getting more competitive out there, and the anglers are saying, man, it's getting harder to make a living.
It's so true that you say that. And there's some videos that I have seen and follow of anglers down, whether they're in Alabama, Louisiana, or Florida. And if you ever watch a shrimp trawler, when a shrimp trawler is done its trawl or is in the process of doing its trawl, the bycatch that unfortunately is part of that trawl, if you cast a line in behind that shrimp trawler, especially when he's offloading that catch, you will be amazed at not only the number of shark, but the number of species that follow these boats around. So to your point, and I'm so glad Jim's not here, but these fish are getting smarter. As soon as they hear that thing dragging on the bottom, or maybe, it's the motor, I don't know, but it's like bringing the dinner bell to them. Yeah. Exactly. So to your point, I have seen some concerns too of commercial guys, like you said, recreational charters and what have you that are, frequently go out into the Gulf of Mexico or even the Atlantic Ocean that are concerned about the population of shark, that there might be, I hate to say it, but there might be a shark problem.
Is it a problem? Is it something we've asked for? Is it something we're out there, we're catching tarpon, we're playing for 30 minutes, an hour and a half. These fish are jumping, thrashing, pulsing the water, sending out vibrations through the water that shark can feel with their lateral line. And they feel animal in distress. And they think that's, that the next step is injured animal, and that's an animal they can catch, right? The lively, healthy ones, they have a hard time catching. So they know they want to find the ones that are in distress and injured, that are suffering, that are slowing down. So, they put two and two together, and there's more sharks. And, really for the guides, and I know some guides down there in Florida, they say, look, when the sharks show up, you just have to pull your anchor and go.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in reeling in a tarpon or some other, high profile sport fish and have it snapped in half, or you release it and seconds later it's shark bait. You've just spoiled that whole experience for your client, who thinks, oh man, I just caused the death of this beautiful fish that I released, and then now they have a bad feeling. So you gotta say, look, if there's a bunch of sharks, you just pull anchor and go somewhere else and try your luck somewhere else. You don't own the water. It's not yours. It's probably the sharks were there first,
Well, try having an argument with a fish and let me know how that goes. But I will say too, it is our saltwater counterparts to the south and to the east and west that are experiencing some of this. But we in freshwater see it as well. Like, I mean, if anybody has ever been tormented by a loon or has been snapped off by a pike that, you know, you're reeling in a walleye or any other fish, and you've been snapped off by a muskie or pike, like they're fish.
Yeah,
they're all fish, and obviously loons aren't. But I mean, I've been tormented up at Horwood many times by loons that have figured it out. That as soon as they see the boat show up, they start to come out because they know they're going to get a free lunch. So I would imagine sharks are no different.
And you hear some scientists publish reports, and they say, look, when you reviving a fish that's a little exhausted, and you're out in the boat and you're holding the fish and you're moving it back and forth, they say you're actually causing it more stress, and you're preventing the recovery of that fish. And they say fish don't mind being upside down, floating belly up. But as fishers, you know that as soon as you let go of that fish and the white belly shines up into the sky, it's a matter of seconds before some bird of prey out of nowhere swoops down and grabs it, right? We all seen it. We've all seen it. So, you know, what's the lesser of two evils? You try to revive it and prevent it from being, bird food. And you keep it close to the boat, you keep it close to your net, you keep it safe until it's strong enough to swim down, and hopefully it stays down.
That's so true. So true. We have time for one more article, but before we do, Steve just mentioned here, Lawrence, they may be for a different show. However, if you could explain what Parenthood Proposals for Waterways is. Does it benefit a recreational angler or the opposite?
Parenthood Proposals. I'm putting it on my research list, buddy. We'll get back to you on that.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that, buddy.
Excellent question. And the better the questions are, the ones that you don't have the answers for, because
exactly.
So here's some interesting science versus local knowledge versus economic opportunity. So we know, on the west coast of Canada, right, they've been given a 5-year window before the open pen salmon farming needs to end. This has caught a consortium of 5 First Nations communities on the west coast of Vancouver Island that have formed a giant cooperative and have bought up a cannery and has invested into some aquaculture operations and is growing fish in nets and harvesting those fish and processing those fish in their own cannery and then selling those fish under their own name and their own brand. And they're claiming that these fish are being raised humanely, that it's not causing any damage to the environment. And there's a really good article that you can find in the last issue of the Bluefish News. It's a Q&A with the CEO of this First Nations consortium. And he says, I've asked the questions and I'm satisfied that the fish we're raising in those nets are being taken care of properly. And it's not causing injuring the nature and the wild salmon population. And they're making money. And they're, finding ways to support their communities and provide jobs to their community members. And they feel that this is something they have the right to do. They've always done it, and it's part of their Indigenous rights and values and history and tradition to catch and sell fish. And then you look at the Pacific Salmon Foundation, which is a very, very prestigious science-based conservation group that's not anti-fishing at all. They're pro-fishing and pro-conservation. And they issued a report saying, look, for 20 years, and over 60 papers, scientific papers that they've produced themselves, they say there's very clear proof that open net fish farming along the coast, at river mouths and especially, is very injurious to wild salmon populations. And it's contributing significantly to the reduction of wild salmon stocks. So, look, this isn't a perfect science. And lining the ducks up, right, and getting the science into the hands of the people that are making the decisions, and before they go and invest a pile of money into economic opportunities and are led there, obviously, to invest in these opportunities by other people who have an interest in getting those people to invest and take their side, right, of the economic argument. it's manipulation in its sad way, but you know, this is the new battlefield, right? Science and economic opportunity and propaganda and you know, different value systems, you know, and getting the right champions on your side to help promote your position. Things are getting nasty. Things are getting personal, and people are being played. And you know, it's going to happen. We're going to find more and more instances of this, and we just got to call it as it is and say, look, the answer to all this is get the right information out there and make sure the science is being shared and that it's transparent and that we're being honest and people can see for themselves what's true and what's not.
I mean, not to, and I don't want to offend any First Nations people, but I do have my concerns when we mention cage culture. I don't believe that we've had too many instances in recent years that would suggest that cage culture is not detrimental to the wild stocks, not detrimental to the environment. And in the end of the day, the quality of the fish that are being raised is questionable. I don't want to say substandard, but let's say questionable.
Oh yeah, you just see the fish. You look at the fish coming out of those pens, and you look at them, and you go, "Oh my God, I'm not eating that." You know?
Yeah. So I guess, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm embracing the fact that First Nations are you know, I love the forward thinking that they're having. I just have concerns that we have just so much evidence in science that, as you mentioned, that would suggest otherwise, that, yeah, it might be profitable, but to say that it's having no environmental impacts, I doubt that. Is it not having effects on the wild stock? I'm not sure how it doesn't. I guess it all depends on where it is located, how it is done, the population of fish within the cage. And when they say, you know, there's you know, these fish are being raised healthy and without disease and all this, how would we be able to prove it?
Yeah. You know, I think what this stands for is that we all have values that we've been taught by our, you know, ancestors, right? Yep. By our grandparents and so on. You know, that this is the right way, this is the proper way to go about your business. And then we find out later that, you know, in fact, maybe that it isn't the right way. And now we know, we have scientific evidence that in fact it's not the right way, and that we have to do something different, because that way may have worked when there was a few of us and when we didn't have a whole lot of technology, but now there's more of us and then we have much more powerful technology. It's not the right way at all. And it's having significant impacts that our ancestors couldn't imagine, because they never had the kind of tools that we have access to. So, you know, it's not that they were wrong or they were at fault. It's just things have changed, right? Things have evolved, and we have to evolve with the times.
Now, to that point, this is what gets me concerned. The population of this planet continues to grow.
Yeah.
How in the heck are we going to continue to feed people? You know, I mean, we can sit here and we can throw paint at and paint aquaculture from a cage culture standpoint with a bad light, and we can, you know, condemn it, we can say negative things, but at the end of the day, how in the heck are we going to feed all these people?
Yeah, you know, I think there's enough evidence and enough examples of closed containment fish aquaculture, and that's you know, over 90% of seafood that we purchase is closed containment aquaculture. Like, if we're talking about aquaculture, 90% of it is closed containment, which means the water in that pond or pool or reservoir or whatever it is, or tank, is not part of the water that's in the ecosystem around it, right? It's closed off, and we know it works, and we know it can work. It's been a little bit more challenging when you're dealing with these alpha predators like Atlantic salmon and steelhead trout. And these are very strong, powerful, you know, aggressive fish. You gotta make it so that they can live their life without making them feel claustrophobic or going bananas because they're trapped. So you have to find ways of doing that, and we're finding ways of doing that in closed containment ways. but it's the setup cost is significant. Whereas, just have a net that floats in the ocean, and then once you contaminate that part of the ocean, you just move the net, pull the net out, wash it, and put it somewhere else, which is what they're doing on the East Coast. They're just hopscotching their way up the coast from one bay to the next, and leaving giant messes behind that can take 10, 20, 30 years to sort of dissipate.
I think the more I research microplastics, I think that's more of the problem than anything else. And we could talk and condemn about cage culture, but at the end of the day, we're not doing our water any service. No. Microplastics. If you watch Shark Week, there was a couple episodes that spoke about that issue at verbatim, and the fact that it's able now to be drawn out of the ocean, it becomes part of a cloud and a rain system that then goes on shore and has the ability to then spread these microplastics inland via storms and cumulus clouds and what have you.
And the diseases and the toxins and the diseases that they carry, because they become little hosts, right? Little sponges that host these things and allow them to, these little bombs of contamination and toxicity to be spread. The plastic itself is maybe innocuous, but it does play host to these chemicals and chemical reactions and various viruses and diseases and things. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
But yeah, so we could say all we want about, cage culture, but at the end of the day, the amount of microplastics that are currently right now, degrading in our oceans, is it's alarming. It's concerning.
Yeah.
Lawrence, as always, you're a wealth of information. We look forward to hearing an update from your resort. I will say your natural resort.
Oh my God! Yes, the Bluefish Exploration Center.
Can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear an update of how that's going and when we're going to have the champagne bottle christening and opening.
Me too.
Yeah. Good times as always. Thanks so much for joining us, Lawrence, and spending your Mondays with our CFN community and informing and enlightening us, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me, Scotty. It's always an honor, man.
Right on. We got Jay Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
I tell you, look at this stud over here.
Oh, God.
Look at this man. Oh, ladies.
Dude, I'm old, dude. I've been fishing against these young kayak anglers. Are killing me.
I don't even know where to begin because you've got so much to share tonight. But I will say this, based on what you were up to this weekend, that would probably bedridden a few of us. So congratulations, and maybe you want to share a little bit.
Yeah, so this past weekend, I sent you a pic, Scotty. It's just a really cool experience. So this past weekend was the Ontario Kayak Bass Trail. And a lot of you folks know, so this picture here, this is, everyone knows Owen Brock on the left, myself. In the middle is John Dean, I call him the Dean, university days, the Dean. He's in charge of the OKBT, because he has a lot of great volunteers helping him. Just like you, Scotty, without the folks in the background, you don't get it done. That's John. Then the little guy there, kind of the short guy, which he's not that short, just we're all tall. That's Jeff Penner from Jeff's Jigs. And then, of course, Trevor on the end. And we fished the Ontario Kayak Bass Trail tournament this weekend at Long Point Bay, which is our home waters. And John and I have been talking about this event for a couple of years. What's great about the OKBT is they like to change up their events and move them around. John reached out to me and said, could we have it in Long Point? I said, I think we could. It's a big place. Winds aren't forgiving, but if you get the right day, it could be awesome. And it was. 119 kayak anglers from across Ontario and Quebec. They came down to Long Point. They were camping in the parks, going to the local food trucks. The local businesses were reaching out to me. Like, they thought I organized it but I'm the local like fish guy, right? So they're all reaching out to me, and it was just cool stories about local anglers, local businesses meeting the kayak anglers from all across. And I hope they come back. I think they had a good time. And Long Point Bay put out some big fish. You needed over 93 inches to win. Mark Moran won. And
Wow.
some of these guys, like, so 93 inches, just so everyone knows, like, that's basically like an 18, 19 pound bag of bass. Like, you're talking, that's 18 and a half inch average for 5 fish. So, like, get this, man. I finished in 12th spot out of 119 guys, which I'm happy with, because these guys are, like, I guess I'm no slouch, but these guys are good, man. Like, they are good. And Trevor and I and Owen and Jeff, we put our time in out there. Owen came in 5th and cashed a check. The little, you know what? Like, I'm so proud of him. I was a bubble boy. Like, I came in 12th, so I missed a check by one. I missed a check by half an inch. We measure in quarter inches. And I missed big fish, $500 by a quarter of an inch. Like, wow. The competition is so fierce. It's unbelievable. Lady Luck was on my side. I caught a 19 and a half inch largemouth on the first cast of the morning.
Woo!
So, like, Fat Me pulls into my spot, Scotty. It took me an hour to get to my spot, like, literally pedaling straight. I pull up. I got sweat pouring down my face at 6 a.m. I took my topwater frog and threw it to some bulrushes. And as it landed, and I can't even see straight because I have sweat in my eyes. Okay.
I know the feeling.
And dude, all I heard was the flush, whoosh, set the hook. This thing's tail walking behind my kayak like it was mayhem. I landed 19 and a half. And yeah, the day just kind of went from there. It was just a great day. And I saw lots of anglers on the water, and yeah, just a really fun event. Jeff Penner stayed with us for a few days. So when you stay at our place, Heather she is the host with the most. You are well fed. You are well taken care of. It was a lot of fun. When the boys don't wear sunscreen, they get lectured by Heather though. So we call Heather Surrett Safety Surrett. She's probably mad at me now for saying this on the podcast, but I will. So she looks after everyone. It was just a great time. And then after the event was over, we all went to the Brock's house for a bonfire and had some hot dogs and talked fishing. And yeah, it was just a great weekend. I did try to go fishing yesterday, Scotty, because the weather was so nice. I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't kayak fish yesterday. I was wiped. I did 21 kilometers in the kayak on Saturday. I think I went further than most other anglers in the whole event. And I don't even have a motor. A good chunk of these guys have motors now. I need a motor, though. I'm too old to pedal this much.
21 kilometers.
Yeah.
I can't imagine walking 21 kilometers. So congratulations to you. But
and that's not just pedaling, that's paddling too. Because when you're largemouth fishing, you're shallow. You're pulling up the weeds and yeah, it was great, man. It was just a great weekend. So kudos to the winners. Shout out to John Dean. And shout out to the local businesses around Long Point Bay that really catered to all of us. This was at Harmony Resorts, which is they bought an old marina. It used to be called Boose Harbor for anyone who's from Long Point.
Yeah, Bruce, I remember that. Yeah.
So they bought Boose Harbor. It's Harmony Resorts. They got a few resorts around. They have a resort up on Baptiste. They have a resort on Stony, and they actually cooked us ribs. They did a barbecue deal, ribs with pork and beans and corn on the cob for $20. So we got, and the prizes that John gets for these events, you have basically a 1 in 10 chance of getting a prize at these things. So the entry fee alone for $90, you have a chance of winning a couple of grand. And like, just for showing up, everyone got their name in a raffle for a power pull. It's a power pull, but the kayak version, like that's a couple grand. And like, it's amazing, the prizes. So kudos to those guys, man. They do a great job. I wish I could fish more of those tournaments. but just being where I am and life on the road is too much. But I just want to give those guys a big shout out. And if anyone's thinking about doing a kayak tournament, go to the Ontario Kayak Bass Trail and check it out. It's a great brotherhood of, well, guys and girls. There's a mix of people fishing it, husbands and wives, mix of ages. But it's a really fun group, and they're very helpful. So I encourage anyone to give it a shot. And it's only $90.
I hate to say this because the marinas and the tournaments like CSFL are going to get mad when I say this, but it is affordable means of being able to tournament fish that I'm sure a lot of us really appreciate, because the things are just getting so freaking.
And you don't need you have kayaks with all the bells and whistles. You don't need to have one of those. I ran into a couple of anglers who had a paddle kayak with a milk crate and a few rods, and they were catching fish, man. There was a lot of limits. The trick, though, was a lot of 15-inch fish caught, so that puts you in that sort of 70-inch range, 60, high 60s, low 70s. You had to catch like some 18-inch fish or 17-inch fish in that mix. And those were hard to find on tournament day. So lots of fish caught, but not the right size. But as well as I do going up these events, someone always catches them, man. And I'm impressed. Like, as a spectator in the sport, Scotty, like my home lake, I wanted to just see how it performed. I wanted the best kayak anglers to show me how good it could be. And I was hoping the lake would do well for them. And it was a perfect storm. The wind did kick up in the afternoon more than it was supposed to, like around from noon till 3, it kind of started blowing pretty hard out of the west. But from 6 a.m. till 12, it was flat, calm, and perfect. And Trevor and I, of course, we were literally the first guys in the water at 4 a.m. We left our house at 3:15, got there at 4, and we were in the water at 4 o'clock sharp. And so the kayak tournament's cool because you can launch before 5, but you can't leave the launch until 5. So it's kind of like a blast off, but where everyone just goes real slow together. And so at 5 a.m. you can leave, and then you don't start fishing till 6. So you have an hour to get to your destination. So it's really cool, and it's a run and gun tournament. You can fish anywhere you want. You can access the lake anywhere you want as long as it's public access available. So if it's a paid ramp, anyone can pay there, or a free ramp. Doesn't matter, but it has to be fair to everyone. And the bay has about a dozen launches around the perimeter of it, so it makes it a great venue. So very, very cool.
Well, speaking of bass, you asked me to download a video. I did see it, actually. It ended up in my news feed. It was a little bit different than the video that I downloaded for you. But what it does is it shows how this fish got weighed, the weight of the fish, and you're going to tell a little bit of a backstory of what happened after it was weighed. But for all those who love big bass, have a look at this beast.
Turn around so you get the video. Stand over here. Are you guys getting back over here and everything too? You have one of those?
I don't think we have
spoiler, this is the New York record largemouth bass. 12.35 pounds. The anglers reached out to the New York DEC, which is their M&R. They showed up with 2 different certified scales to confirm the weight. The fish was brought in alive, was taken back alive, and released on the same spot where it was caught. It's an awesome story. This fish did not die after being caught. Like most records we hear about, they need to kill the fish to verify it.
It's 2.2 pounds.
And I don't want to talk about lead in the belly and these things. Like I believe this is a legitimate record. This angler here was pre-fishing for a club tournament. Him and his buddy caught it. It was 12 pounds on their scale. They brought it in. This was 1 pound larger than the previous record. And that record, so this fish came out of Cayuga Lake. Last year, the New York State record smallmouth came out of Cayuga Lake. Cayuga Lake is putting out a ton of big fish right now, and I'm surprised it's not getting more notoriety. And for CFNers, It's only a few hours from Buffalo. It's actually a very accessible lake for a lot of us. And they have a great early season bass there. There's gobies in the lake. There's Scotty, you mentioned they stock walleye there, so you think there's a bit of a forage base for these big brutes. But look at that fish, like absolute beast of a largemouth. 12.35 pounds. Unreal. And a northern largemouth, right?
Unreal.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, so I didn't realize the gobies were in Cayuga, but that definitely helps. But yeah, if you've ever been, if you ever have the chance to go down to the Finger Lakes, I highly recommend going to one of their hatcheries. There's 4 of them, as you know.
Yep.
Pick any one that you want. Cayuga has a really good one, so I highly recommend that to go see. But the millions, and I mean millions of walleye alone. I don't know about what else they stock, but the millions of walleye fry that they put back in Cayuga might have something to do with it. And for someone who knows a little thing about how bass and walleye cohabitate, there's a good chance that bass has a belly full of walleye.
Yeah, it's an impressive fish, and it's really, and not just big fish. Like there's been a couple records, but like even some of the recent kayak events there, if you aren't getting 90 plus inches, you're not even in the money. Like there's something like 40 or 50 90-inch bags in the last Hobie BOS tournament, which like those are all 18 to 19 pound bags of bass, equivalent weight. Like it's just unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Just look at the stomach on that thing.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So the DEC, it's New York DEC. They said in an interview that I listened to, they believe this fish to be a female, be a post spawn, did not have eggs in it. So this fish would have weighed more. And they said this fish was healthy. They provided it survived this ordeal, because it's not an easy thing. But they brought it in right away. They kept it in their live well. It was the only fish in the live well. But one thing that fish do is that fish just don't stop reproducing. A lot of people think that when fish get to a certain size, they stop being quality, but they don't. The bigger they are, the more quality eggs you get, the more quality offspring you get. Eventually they die, but they're not like humans, dude, where we just taper off. Fish just keep getting better with age. For us, we start to taper. I'm not sure at what point I'm at on this line, but I used to be up here. Somewhere I'm over here. I'm trying to make it better, but it's somewhere down here. I think.
That's hilarious. That is so funny.
Yeah, but great story from New York. Awesome.
Absolutely. And I will say there was a lot of great stories that came out of ICAST. And one in particular that you wanted to share, of course, forward-facing sonar is the new cool kid on the block.
Yeah.
And the latest technology, the latest advancements, the quality of the image is really what is starting to get people to separate themselves with that money, and of course pay into what has become the new fad and phenom of the angling community. But this is from Lawrence. This is the newest. It's just incredible.
Yeah, this is great.
See it live. Catch it live. Eagle Eye. Watch fish react to your lure with live sonar. Auto tune for ease, plus detailed maps. Turn a good day into a great day with live sonar. Eagle Eye from Lawrence.
Incredible.
So I'm sitting there Friday afternoon rigging rods for the kayak tournament in the driveway, just out there, just chilling, having a drink. And I'm scrolling Instagram, and Fletcher Shyrock on his account, he's in the Lawrence booth. And of course, okay, what's Lawrence coming out with? And just so everyone knows, I don't have an affiliation with any electronics company. I use them all. And they're all great, man. They all have great, like such good attributes. All of them are good. So I'm listening to Fletcher's reel, and I'm listening, and he's talking about this new Eagle. And Eagle has always been the economical version of Lawrence, right? So you had Eagle and Lawrence. And all of a sudden I hear him say forward-facing sonar, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Okay, I'm looking at it, and then he says $9.99. $9.99. So I take my fat thumb and I scroll backwards, and I'm like, listen again, like $9.99. I don't believe it. So then I went to the Lawrence website, did some searching. I mean, sure enough, for $9.99 US, you get forward-facing sonar. And if you look at that video, why I like that video, Scotty, versus someone trying to sell it to you, it has a lot of average anglers in that video. Did you notice that? Like parents with kids, little fish, big fish, like just, it wasn't a bunch of pros catching giant bass. It was a mix of all kinds of different types of anglers fishing. And that's what this is being marketed towards. For folks that don't know, so typically with forward-facing sonar, you have to buy the expensive sonar, the expensive screen, and usually a separate unit, a box to wire it all together. This one is plug and play. It has its own, so this unit, it has mapping, it has, which you can upgrade with CMAP. So it's, but again, it's, the Eagle is dialed down, right? So you're talking Toyota, not Lexus, okay? So you know, it's a Corolla. It does the job. It doesn't do side scan, okay? So that's one con of it, but it does down scan, it does 2D, it does mapping, and it does forward-facing sonar. The difference with the forward-facing sonar for this unit, my research tells me, is Lawrence has what's called active target. That's their forward-facing sonar. So to describe it, active target has like a cone angle like this, okay? It's like a little more than, it's like 130 degrees. The eagle eye is like half that, okay? So it's like half that angle. So the screen itself, you don't get as much coverage, but it does forward-facing and it does down-facing. You can't do perspective mode on this unit. No black box. You just plug in the transducer, plug in your power source. It runs on 12-volt power. Off you go. You will have to get a bit bigger, like lithium battery or something like that, like something around 20 amp hour to get you running. But I'm telling you, this unit for $9.99 is going to be around 1,300 Canadian. It'll be available this fall, and not just for like bass anglers. This is going to be great for ice anglers. This is going to be a cheap forward-facing sonar unit. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about this unit and how it performs. And yeah, it doesn't have as many features, but dude, I run a Garmin Echo Map. That doesn't have like, that's like middle of the road Garmin, and it does way more than I need it to, right? Yeah. So I think this Eagle Eye or Eagle View is going to be an incredible market for anglers. And it's going to be, apparently it's going to be in stores this fall. So start saving your nickels. If folks want forward-facing sonar for their boat or kayak, I'll be definitely looking at the spring fishing and boat show for this, for sure. Absolutely.
100%. And to your point, that's, as soon as you started talking about it, I immediately thought hard water. This is going to be something that is affordable, and not to say that the others aren't, but let's just call it what it is. This is an affordable way of getting into the forward-facing market. And as a hard water angler, to have the ability to do everything else as well as the live scope or an aspect of the live target, as Lawrence calls it, win-win. Yeah, and I didn't even see this coming. You know, sometimes companies hype up stuff before it comes out. Didn't see that coming. I came across that randomly, and that's why I sent you that video, because I got on YouTube looking. And there's some early reviews out of it, but it discusses the pros and cons of it. Like, you can't network it with other Lawrences like it does, because it's an Eagle. It doesn't have all the features. But I think what's great about it, though, is that even for anglers who already have units on their boat, this might be, if they don't have forward-facing sonar, you could make this a dedicated forward-facing sonar unit just for that purpose, right? Okay. So it's got a lot of potential. Yeah, I think for not just for amateurs, like rookie anglers, amateur anglers, like for everyone, because it can be a standalone unit and it can be used for other purposes. So it's great, man. Great point. Not new to us, but new to Northeastern Ontario, CBC, and I want to thank Kate Rutherford from CBC News for posting this on the 19th of July. But it again brings up a good topic for us to discuss. Of course, with the fish off going on, what Steve and I saw firsthand with that lamprey that was attached to that salmon, and I have to say, I've never seen a lamprey eel that big. It was, it was quite big.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, up in northeastern Ontario, this new invasive species has recently been detected. Sydney Courier is with the Invasive Species Center in Sault Ste. Marie and says the Eurasian roughy was reported in St. Mary's River in May. The spread of this invasive fish is not welcome, especially for us sport anglers, because it is very voracious. It does compete with the natural fish, although it is part of the perch family, as indicated in the picture. It does act a little bit differently than a typical perch or typical walleye. I will have to say, as bad news as this is, can you tell us any more on why we need to be proactive when it comes to how to deal with these fish?
Yeah,
because of what they can do to the sport fish, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so the orange ruff is a funny one because they've been in Lake Superior for a long time, and it's believed they came from ballast water, much the same way gobies were spread in the Great Lakes, was primarily ballast water. They didn't spread on their own. They were helped along. But orange ruff has been in the Lake Superior watershed for a long time. It hasn't moved a lot. It's kind of like, it reminds me of tube-nosed goby, Scotty. Yeah. So tube-nosed goby is a goby. Many folks might not even know what a tube-nosed goby is, but it's quite common. Like, so I'm in Windsor again this week. So like Windsor and like Lake St. Clair areas. I've seen them up along the St. Clair River through Sarnia. And so, let's say from Sarnia to Lake Erie. Lake Huron to Lake Erie, there's tube-nosed goby. And I've seen them in around Point Pelee and Rondo, but not far outside of those areas. And so they're kind of cryptic. Like they're invasive, but they're not spreading like crazy. And that's what orange roughy's doing. They haven't spread much at all. And, if they've been in Lake Superior, to see them in Sault Ste. Marie, they've obviously come through the locks. So that's maybe a little troubling, but they obviously make their way through. I think they probably will not be an issue, but there'll be competition with yellow perch and walleye because they're going to be close to the same niche in the food web, right? So they're part of the family Percidae, same as perch and walleye. So there might be some competition, but I don't think it's going to be a real problematic invasive. But I think it's important though for anglers, like you were saying, Scotty, be aware of what you're seeing out there, and learn to report these things, especially new records. Like, I think that it's great that we have like the Invasive Species Center where we can report invasive species. And I think it's important for anglers to learn to do that if they're concerned. I get a lot of this recently, but people putting pictures of random fish up on Facebook and asking, is this an invasive species? Oh, good Lord, do not ask the minions on Facebook. No offense to anyone on Facebook. I'm on Facebook myself. But there are such knowledgeable people out there, Scotty. And why are we like, is this an Asian carp? Like, don't do this, because you're going to get 40 different answers. Yeah. And some of those answers are actually joking, but some people might take them seriously. Like, there's way better resources out there for asking questions. And there are no dumb questions, but there might be places where you shouldn't ask those questions.
Exactly. There's the right place and the right time. But to your point, like I look at this fish, and outside of the pectoral fin, which looks like, it almost looks like, the spiny, those spiny, what are they called? The bait fish.
Oh, like a stickleback. Is that what you're thinking about?
Thank you. Stickleback. Yeah. So I look at that pectoral fin, and it reminds me of a stickleback. But I'm going to assume, much like the perch, much like the walleye, that fin will somehow find its way into the body of the fish. And whether it's sideswiped or it's taken down from the head to the tail, this fish can be consumed. And I don't know how good its eyesight is at night, but to me, this is just another forage base for the walleye, for the perch.
Yeah. And they don't get overly big. Like, they don't get big, like they're smaller than yellow perch from what I've read. So I don't see them being a major threat I honestly think some of the, when you mentioned it to me, because I haven't been online for a few days because of the kayak fishing, so I hopped online, and even like the Weather Network was carrying this story, CBC, Alternative Doors, like, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't think this fish is that big of a threat. It doesn't mean invasive species are not like newsworthy. They should be, right? But I think this is one that, I'm not saying we should spread it around. It's not going to help anything, but it's definitely not one we should worry too much about. We might have other things to worry about out there than this one.
As agreed. And just in case folks don't know, obviously you can call the tips line, you can call the invasive species line. But if you do catch one of these, and I just want so folks can see it, it is very similar to a walleye, very similar to a perch. But if folks do catch this, what is the best course of action?
Well, I think the best thing to do would be to keep it. And the best thing if you can't put it in a jar of ethanol, I would freeze it. I would freeze it. If you're convinced that's what it is, I would freeze it and call the Invasive Species Center in Sault Ste. Marie. They have an email address, and they also have a website and a hotline number you can call. You can call M&R as well, but the Invasive Species Center is a good one to always call for invasive species questions if you really have one. I think so.
Well, I appreciate that. And Blake is bringing us that sheep's head are out of control on the North Shore right now. I'm going to assume
he's talking about Lake Erie. Blake's one of our Erie Bassmasters. Blake, shout out to you and your dad for. I know the weights were tough in that tournament this past Saturday, but you guys went out there and tangled with the best of them. You guys did well, so congrats on that finish with you and your dad. But yeah, the freshwater drummer sheep's head, they are rampant on Erie. Like I really like fighting them. They fight, dude. You know this, Scotty. Like they put up a hell of a fight, but they really wreck my Jeff's jigs. They really tear up. I hate. It's kind of like when I'm steelheading and I hook into I catch steelhead and you're like, they're great. And then I hook into a big Chinook in the same pool that I never saw. And I just want to straighten my line and break it. I'm like, I don't even want to fight this thing. I just want to cook another steelhead. I don't want to walk this big dog around for 20 minutes. And that's what freshwater drummer with me is. They're fun. I remember as a kid, oh my good Lord, they were fun, dude. Like fighting, we'd be out bass fishing in the bay, dragging minnows with grandpa and dad. And next thing you know, we got a big freshwater drum on, and my grandfather's swearing in Hungarian because drummer is such a waste of time. But I'm like over the moon with this giant freshwater drum. I'm pretty sure we brought a couple home. They might have been fed to the barn cats, but because I had to show my grandmother what I caught, his grandma was impressed, but grandpa wasn't because he can't eat it. He couldn't eat the freshwater drummer. Didn't think he could.
So funny. That is so funny. But yeah. And there are people that do enjoy it. I know I've spent some time on the water with the Tallow Bigden, and he raves about them. He loves eating them.
Yeah, they're great. I love the pictures of Pete Bowman when he goes to Bay of Quinte and catches the giants. Like, if you want to catch a big drum, I would like to go to Lake Ontario, Bay of Quinte, and catch one of those 10+ pounders. I've caught some close to that size and maybe a little bigger on Erie, but those Lake Ontario drum are so big. Oh my God. What are they eating so different in Lake Ontario and Bay of Quinte than they are in Erie? Erie, there's there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But they're not as big as the ones in Lake Ontario. Maybe Blake could be happier if they were big, really big. But then I think on those drop shot rods, I'd be fighting it for 30 minutes. I don't have that kind of time, man. I want to catch more fish.
Amen. One other thing before we wrap it up and discuss what our topics will be next week, I did want to show you this video, and it had me a little concerned, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to temper my concerns by enlightening us what it actually is. But when I saw this video, I became alarmed, and I'm thinking, what on earth are happening to these walleye now? We know about lice.
Yeah.
We know about other kinds of skin diseases. And then I saw this, and Woodward, who shared this video, she says that it's leeches, that there are leeches. Is it possible that there are leeches?
Yeah, they're leeches, man. Like, so we've seen leeches on walleye too, especially in northern lakes. I find there's a lot more leeches there than where we live down the south. But often, Scotty, we see them on the fins, right? We've seen leech infestations on fins. And an infestation might be like a half dozen. There's probably 24 leeches in the mouth of that fish. And I've never seen an infestation in the mouth. So it's definitely creepy. Yeah, but I don't think there's anything like that's a pretty healthy walleye. I think the leeches are just hitching a ride, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I can think it is.
Well, I will say this, as I said, if that is the case, I don't know what body of water it is, but I'm actually surprised that this female angler was able to hook into this walleye, because if it's gorging on leeches, I can't imagine why it would even bother going after her bait. But wow, okay, well, you know what? I can go to sleep tonight and know that, this is not a new disease hitting our waters. This is not a new attack on our beloved walleye. That this, in fact, is nature.
We have to let the audience in on the fact that during the pre-show, you were showing this video backstage.
Yeah.
And Yvonne was trying to eat a sandwich. And Yvonne had a hard time watching that video while she was trying to eat her sandwich.
It's so true.
Like, looking back, that was not a good thing while she was eating.
No, 100%.
Oh, God.
But needless to say, that's why it's fun. That's why we do, because we always have fun. Now,
yeah, absolutely.
Next week topic is something that I definitely came to you to sort of engage with, and I think we are going to draw in a lot of folks who spend a lot of time on our Great Lakes, especially Lake Ontario.
Yep.
This year has been absolutely off the hook crazy when it comes to the bite of our beloved salmon.
Yeah.
Everybody, including charter captains, who sometimes like to keep their cards close to their chest, have been very open about how good of a year it has been. I want to know from you. I want to know from our guests, maybe some charter captains that can join us next week. We want to know what is different about this year than last year that has made the bite so off the charts.
If you wanted to, I was chatting a little bit about this with Mark Penner, Jeff's dad. He's the manager at Grimsby Tackle. Maybe he'll come on and be a guest, Scotty. I think it's a great conversation. So why don't I connect you and Mark and me and let Mark come on, because he's in touch with, like, Grimsby Tackle. They help a lot of the charter captains. They help with a lot of local derbies. They're very good with the community, and they sell tackle. Great business. So maybe we should reach out to Mark. I think he'd have his thumb on that pulse for Lake Ontario for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I look forward to that, because, as I said, we had the pleasure of COVID year. There's some great ideas that folks have come up with, Steve, and we will say firsthand how great the fishery is for what we experienced on Friday. But I know there's other folks that are going out of the Port Credit area, the Bluffers area, and they're catching like 30.
Like I've heard guys like from Port Hope over to like St. Catharines. Like, it doesn't matter where you launch. Everyone's getting, like, limiting out early in the morning. It's very similar stories to what walleye have been on Erie, where you go out in the morning and you're back in by 9 with four guys and 4 limits, right? Yeah. And you're hearing the same thing with Lake Ontario right now. It is off the charts with numbers, and you're seeing some good size too. Like, not like the old days, but there's some good size fish coming in. And I don't really have my finger on the pulse of what's going on with Lake Ontario. Like, is it a good, maybe there must have been a good prey base 2 years ago, because these are all probably 3 and 4 year old fish, right? Like these bigger ones. Mm-hmm. They're the top of the population, the big ones. And they're probably going to spawn in this year, and though they don't live after spawning, we know that with Chinooks. But what happened in those last 4 years to cause this? That's interesting. It is, yeah.
Because I don't have an explanation myself.
Yeah,
I have had folks that have offered, like COVID.
Yeah,
it being an east wind. Brad from Powcassie's mentioned that we've had more east winds this year, which perhaps might blow the nutrients, which of course the forage base follows, and that brings the salmon in. Water temperatures have escalated. We've had lots of current because of rainfall. But yeah, I don't know, like what flipped the switch. Has made this year so different from last year.
Yeah, honestly, dude, I can reach out to Mark. I think he'd be a great guest, and he's got his, like, he knows he's buddies with lots of charter captains too, which is nice. So he likes to promote different businesses. So yeah, maybe we should do that. And I bet you Mark's been thinking about this because we've had a couple of in between, like, so with Jeff staying with us for a few days last week, like dad's talk, and we both have annoying teenage sons. I mean, lovely teenage sons. And and we actually got talking, of course, we got talking about Lake Ontario and the salmon fishing. So maybe we should do that next week. That'd be a good time to do that right before the long weekend too, right? So
absolutely, Sean, you're 100% right, dude. That could be it as well. Kaboom. Yeah,
there's all these different like theories, right? And I think some of them all have merit, like COVID. It could be a prey base increase. Like, there's so many things that could have gone on. Like Sean, so for example, but if these are 3 and 4 year old fish, so COVID started in 2020, like there wasn't as much stocking going on that first year either, right? So we a lot of our Chinooks, our population is sustained by stocking. So we didn't have people fishing, but there also wasn't as much stocking going on that year potentially. I don't know the true answer, but these are things I got thinking about, Scotty, is what happened in 2020 to start this? I don't know.
Well, I can see a great topic is just growing and waiting to be discussed. Jay, as always, my friend, thanks for all you do, not only for our CFN community, but our fishery at large. Hopefully everything goes well where you are in Windsor. Yeah, and find the science and the fish that you're looking for, my friend.
It'll be good, man. It's going to be a good week. I got 2 great students with me this week. We're going to work hard and finish up this project and move on to the next one. And I got to get home and do some fishing. I need to go smallie fishing, Scotty. I love my green fish, but my legs don't love the green fish. Like out in the open waters of Lake Erie, I don't have to paddle. I don't have to pedal or paddle as hard, right? It's like nice. So hopefully this weekend the winds stay and we get to go catch some smallmouth this weekend. So
right on, Jay. As always, right. Steve, well said. We wish you well. You take care, buddy.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later. Ciao.
Peace. There it is again, another show. So thankful for everyone that joins us each and every Monday. You spend your time. As I said, your time is just as valuable as ours. And we thank you so much to our guest Maria and of course our co-host Yvonne. Yet another successful and informative ladies' night. Lawrence, Jay, and of course Jim, who took the night off for a family event that's going on tonight. Again, we missed you, but we'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll have Moose, but I think we will have a great show and a great discussion in regards to what's going on with our salmon fishery on our Great Lakes, but mostly Lake Ontario. And if we can get the penners involved, that would be very cool too. In the meantime, I want you guys to all have yourselves a great week. Enjoy the weather. We got some more hot weather coming here in Ontario, and I'm sure it's not cooling down out west. So get out there, enjoy some soft water while you can. And of course, as we always say, take a kid fishing. Dave, it's up to you, buddy. Take us away. Love you all. All the best. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.